And welcome to another conversation on life shifts. I am Charlene Fagan, and joining me today is my co-host Carol Narcisse, and we have a friend with us, a friend and an entrepreneur, Sandra Samuels, who we will talk to very shortly. Welcome, ladies.
Hi,
Thanks
hi,
for having
Charlene.
me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a really fine. It's an amazing day. Yesterday we had a break. Today we all get to be back on the hustings, and so to be talking with Sandra today is really crucial. Charlene, maybe you can introduce
Surely.
Sandra to those few who don't know her.
Okay, I will because she's well known. Okay, so let me introduce her properly. Sandra Samuel, I call her Sandy, is an estet. Oops, that
Esthetician.
I
Esthetician.
know. All right, I'll
Esthetician.
take that out. Sandra Samuels is an esthetician and barber, and importantly, an entrepreneur. I don't know what happened to my tongue this morning. She's the managing director of the over 25-year-old Totally Male Limited, the only business in the Caribbean that caters to the aesthetics and grooming needs of men only, catered by women only. So, Sandra, welcome again. How's
Thank
it
you.
going? How is it going? How is business going at this time?
Well, Charlene, I am the eternal optimist. And so when COVID-19 happened, as you know, I recently expanded into a larger location. I moved in October of last year. I spent, I got loans to set up this very lovely location at Six Windsor Avenue. So when March came rolled around, because you have to be catching your breath now after. So when COVID came around now in March, listen, I nearly had a heart failure. But you
Mhm.
know me, I'll spend like about 2 minutes, feeling low, because as you know, us Geminis, we don't do low very well.
Not
So
at all.
I don't stay there very long. So I had to, collect myself and say, okay, Samuel, so what is your next move? So I spent about a week just kind of mulling over and asking questions and seeking advice, because my main thing was to keep the family keep the family together, which is my unit of 15 persons.
Mhm.
So that was my main concern. How am I going to manage to keep my crew together through this?
So
Um,
yeah, Sandra, I mean, it's fascinating on so many levels. Yeah,
yes,
the unpredictable nature of a pandemic, the fact that you're a woman in business with all of its own issues that are presented, access to capital not being the least of them. You borrow money, and then here you are in a close contact industry, right?
yes,
Which therefore would be an industry particularly impacted by the outbreak of COVID.
yes.
So, what are some of the shifts that you have been able to make? Because many people in business and women in particular are going to listen to this conversation and say, "Boy, I'm scratching my head," or I'm really anxious to hear how Sandra pivoted.
Right. Well, even with all that I had to face, as you know, the government had placed restrictions on our sector as well. So our operating times were also cut. So what I did in order to survive was I initially the first thing I did was to have because persons were not coming to let me backtrack. What I did first was to have a conversation with the staff to let them know that it's not business as usual. And then I cut days. So, because what I realized was that the barbering section was holding its own, but the personal touch, massages, facials, mani-pedis, that had cut down significantly. I'm getting a feedback from somebody. I don't know
Yeah,
who it is.
let's mute there, Charlene.
Right. And so I cut days at first, and then I cut, oh, well, hours were already cut, but then I cut days. So what I had the barber section was always up and running. The thing about men is that everybody don't really know is that a haircut for a man is like a lifeline. When he can't get his haircut, it's like his world is ending. And the truth is, even in COVID, when you have, although there's no going out to work, like us, we're having online meetings. Many men don't like to be seen without on their A game, and my business attract that type. So we managed, although minimally, we managed with those persons coming in doing their haircuts, and a few would do like mani pedis. So, but the massage and
So
those
what
areas had cut
kind,
significantly. Yes. So
so what
so the
kinds of
persons in those areas,
pro,
the persons in those areas, I had to
what
cut
kind
down
of
their. Sorry.
what protocols did you have to put in place then to be still cutting men's
Right.
hair in the country?
So the mask, gloves. Initially, we were doing gloves, masks. We had sanitization. When you come through the door, you sanitize. You have a seat. We had to cut. Sometimes family come and wait on you. We had to cut that. We had to eliminate waiting. Well, we don't normally entertain waiting, but persons would have, had like maybe sometimes they're on the road, they stop, they have maybe like wife and somebody else. So they had to stay in the car because we didn't want to have many persons inside because, initially it started with a minimum of 20, then it went down to 10. So we had to ensure that at all times we manage the numbers. Now, luckily for us, we have separate areas. We have two separate barber areas, and then everything else is roomed. So 10 people could be here and you wouldn't even know because everybody has their own space. So what we did is to eliminate the waiting. Once you come through the door, you go straight to wherever your destination is. And then you sanitize the hands. Once you get to where you're going, you wash your hands. So because you could possibly have touched doors in between. So we made sure that at every contact point, there was a sanitization situation. And, my customers are usually compliant. We have a family here, a family unit. So we really never had any issues. We wore the mask. Persons who are not shaving, they wear the mask until it's time to shave. They shave, and then now you put on back the mask to leave.
So
So pretty much
let me
that's how
ask
we
you,
managed.
yeah, let me ask you this, Sandra, because a lot of for a lot of women and people in general, but I think women perhaps might have more challenges having the difficult conversations which you had to have with your, as you call them, family, your
Yes,
staff team,
yes,
right at the get-go.
yes,
Sometimes we delay having those conversations because we don't quite know how our heart is broken and into it
yes,
so much that we wait too long sometimes.
right.
How do you approach that conversation?
All right. So in my down week, as I said, I took to bed. So in my down week, because I couldn't quite max out everything in my head. When I did the numbers, they weren't adding up. So as I said, I had my down week. And then as my girlfriend said, you have to put on your big girl panties and do what you have to do. Which is exactly what I did. After that week, got up, dry my tears, stopped feeling sorry for myself, and then I went full speed ahead. We have a WhatsApp group at work. So what I did, I had the conversation, because by this time now, I had to be scheduling persons like two days per week around the back. The barbers were always full 100 on because we were always busy, which I consider a blessing, by the way. We were, and it boiled down. A customer of mine explained it this way. He says, you see these people in here? Don't take it for granted. We're here because we trust you. We have always been the type of spa, the type of business that sanitization was always number one for us. So that trust weighed heavily when it came to COVID. And all we had to do now was to add on top of that by putting in. So once we say do X, as I said, the men were very compliant. They're extremely compliant. So we really never had much of an issue. I had a bit of hesitation when it came to some of the staff members, but I'm very plain, I'm very simple, I'm not draconian. I say it as it is. I communicate a lot. If you're not with the program, then you have to go home. It's as simple as that. Because what it required is that persons would have to step up in areas that they don't normally work in. For example, we're in the barber area, we're overwhelmed. You have to come in and sweep up. It's not in your on your list of duties. But these are not ordinary times, and they have to understand that. Now, if you're not with the program, then you can choose to stay home. I'm not going to fight you, and I was never the type of person to fight. So you'll find that we have maybe one or two casualties that we had to separate from, because I'm not going to fight you. It's either you're on board or you're not. I am the captain of the ship, and I say this is how we are going to operate. And these are now new norms, and this is how we are going to operate. So now we have full buy-in from the staff that's here. I had to lay off just one person, but I mean, she's now coming in because we're seeing now an uptake in the services around the back. So we are now seeing where things are kind of normalizing, not where we were before, because we used to be a 7-day-a-week operation. We're now 5-day-a-week with limited hours. So we are managing. We're managing the time that we have, and we have to work with what we have to work with.
Sandra, I'm hearing you've made a lot of adjustments. You've had to adapt to the present time.
Yes.
How about your personal safety? How do you
Well, we wear masks at all times.
right.
We wear masks and we wash, and that's not new to us. We
Right.
wash every step of the way. We sanitize every chair once you get up. We do not reuse capes. So we have our auxiliary staff. As soon as one batch is finished, she wash and she replenishes the stock, because we do not, normally in a barber situation, you just reuse the capes and change the next strip.
Mm-hmm.
No more. That our new norm now is one cape per person.
Okay.
Spray down the chairs from customer to customer. We spray down with alcohol, but at all times, and plus right now we do temperature checks. So every staff member, their temperature is checked before coming in every morning. Every customer, their temperature is also checked from you before you get inside the building by the security.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to talk about is, obviously the fear around COVID is tremendous in terms of just people wanting to enter into certain spaces. How do
Yes.
you find your customers when they come in? Do you sense that they're comfortable? I mean, I know you obviously made a lot of preparation.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
because we have had to make like special arrangements for some people, because what we don't know about our clients is that some of them have high risk people at home. So
Mm-hmm.
some have chosen not to come out, persons who have, elderly people living with them, or their wives or significant other or children may have an underlying problem. And so you find that those are not coming out. For the ones that do come, it's also a mixed bag, in that some persons, they don't want to be in a space if somebody doesn't have on a mask, because as I said, when we're shaving, we have to remove the mask to shave. So now, we have to make special arrangements. Either they come before we open, or they go in a separate room, because we do have two barber rooms. So, we just manage it as best as possible, and per person as possible. We just manage it as best as possible. What I need to also say is the business side of the business now. That is also another separate management, because you have to speak to your landlord as quickly as possible. That was my number one priority. I called to say that, because I mean, it was a quick chop, it was a quick drop in income. I mean, like 60% of my income. I mean, maybe earlier, maybe could have been a little bit more than 60%. So you know that it's not business as usual. You can't pay your rent when it's due or in full. So you had to have a conversation with your landlord, which mine, what he did, he cut my rent by 50%. He deferred it until my second year. So he didn't cut it, he deferred it. Just like the banks, I had to have that conversation very early. According to my business banker, I was the first letter on her desk, because I don't believe in procrastination. But procrastination will get you in trouble. So I was very proactive in my, because I believe in honoring all of my obligations, and I'm a person who has always honored all of my obligations in full and on time. So I had the conversation with the bank. The banks deferred all of my loans by 3 months, and they're saying that they'll at the end of the 3 months, they'll have another conversation with you to see if you can manage at that time, and if anything you can tweak the arrangement.
Yeah,
So that was a very important step, because it allowed me to breathe,
yeah.
and not be struggling.
So the breathing space is really, really crucial to negotiate. I,
Extremely.
yeah, I'm interested now to hear, because you have been managing a lot,
Yes,
and business persons are managing a lot.
yes,
Business women are managing perhaps even more, because you have your households running
yes.
um, as well. What have you been able to, how has that juggling been for you, and what are some of the support systems that you've been able to call on or invent to
Right.
get you through?
Okay, well, fortunately or unfortunately, it's just me and my dog. So, so for
Sometimes they
me,
are as demanding as children.
so for me, I don't know how my dog is going to manage when I go back to work full time, because she's so accustomed to seeing me at home now. But for me, I even had to negotiate, because where I am, I'm paying rent now, because I also have an Airbnb. Actually, I had two when COVID happened. So one was really a rented property, and the other one is a property that I used to live at, in New Kingston. So what I had to do was to, one, give back the people their property. Luckily for me, it was just time for renewal after 1 year. So I gave up that property, because it's going to be a while before Airbnb kicks back in. And for my other property, luckily for me, I was able to get it short-term rental. So they are both, I took care of that, because that in itself was a bit of a pressure. At home, I renegotiated the rent that I was paying with my landlord. So, that in itself was, she actually reduced the rent for 3 months. So that also I was able to do. I I had to cut my salary because you know that your salary is the first to cut because you have to make sure that the rest of the team gets paid. So luckily, I had some savings. I always treat savings like an expense. So if it's even $5,000 I put down every month, so I was able to go to that little kitty. I always call it my emergency funds, and so the first month I had to do that, or else I would not have been able to cover my bills. And so I was able to, go to my insurance policy and do a drawdown on that. And then after that, I took some of my savings and just kind of covered that period. From that first month, though, we have been able to kind of juggle and manage because I've like cut down on cable, cut down at work, like intranet, because we're closing more days. The light bill went down, the water bill went down. So you just have to manage the expenses. Whereas I used to eat food on the road every day, I now cook every day or every other day so that I manage that funds, that outflow of cash, you know? So pretty much that's how I have been juggling and managing this period.
So, Sandra, I mean, that's a lot, right? A lot of women like yourself have are involved in business. They're entrepreneurs. What advice, if any, if you have any advice, what advice would you give to a woman, let's say in retail, for example, who has had to close
Yeah.
because people are
It's
not
been tough.
coming into
And
retail, yeah, as much.
and so that's why I really consider but even some spas are closed as well.
Yes,
So I
yes,
really consider ourselves really, really very fortunate. It's an anomaly because, as I said, most of the spas are closed or really, 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 really reduced. As I said, the barbering was what saved us, as well as the trust and relationship that we had with our customers. So two things that I take my takeaway from this. It's really important to have relationships with your customers. Right? You have to have a relationship with your customers. You also always have to make sure that you have a little emergency fund somewhere. You need to have a stash to a little go-to spot. You have to have something put down. Three, you have to learn. Right now, I just paid I just paid for subscription for master class because I'm not a good negotiator. And I'm very fearful when it comes to negotiating with the bank and with my landlord. So I just downloaded masterclass and I'm going to learn the art of negotiation. You
And
know,
we're so good at not looking like we're afraid, right? That's
Absolutely,
really the thought.
absolutely. I mean, that I found was crippling for me just to have the conversation with my landlord because I just pay my bills. I'm not a negotiator. That is one of I would say, my weakest area. I've never been one to, bargain, go and say, if I said I can't afford it or I can't afford it. That's how I'm always operating. So for me to just open my mouth and to have the conversation, I was crippled. So I had to call on my friends. Luckily, I have some really very stronger friends, and my customer base is some very high level, top notch businessmen that I had to draw on and say, look, man, you have to help me to how do I negotiate? And they gave me some very, good tips and they were there with me and for me. So I feel very, grateful that at least I had that. But for those who don't have it, you need to have mentors in your back pocket. You need to have person that you have a go-to. Because the truth is, in this business world, as women, it's not easy. It's not easy. And you are treated differently. I can tell you that. My experience over the years, I don't know because I think we're soft or because we are not as, what is the word now? Intimidating as men. They tend to be a little bit more aggressive with us and not as patient. So you have to really put on your big girl panties
Mhm.
and take a decision because that is what it is. A decision to survive. And so whatever is required for that to happen, you have to make that move.
Well, clearly,
I want us to just pause on that and just take that in. We have to make a decision
Yes, it is
to
a
survive.
decision.
yes, and the decision that we make impacts not just ourselves, Carol, but the people that we have working for us. In your case, you have a whole
Yeah, I have 15
contingent
people,
of
and those
staff,
15
and
people
yes,
have families that depend
exactly,
on them.
exactly, yes,
So for
that's what I
me
was
to just
thinking.
say, and not only that, even out of selfishness,
Mm-hmm.
I put my everything in these people. So for me now to say, you have to go home and then to get they may have to go elsewhere, and then I have to now retrain and start over again. And let me tell you something about men. They don't like change. So they don't want to come here and see new faces. They don't like it. And so in for even business preservation, I have to ensure that I keep my staff. And so in keeping my staff, I have to allow them to eat, be able to eat. So I have to juggle so that they're at least carrying home something. They need to be carrying home something that their family can eat.
Listen, this has been a really rich conversation, Charlene. Sounds like we have
Yes,
to have part two with Sandra
yes,
because
and
there's so much that Sandra has shared in these few minutes that
yes,
are instructive, not just if you're in business, but it generally in life,
In life,
managing
yes.
your life successfully. Uh,
yes.
um, and I'm sure that there is much more that could be shared. So we really have to thank Sandra for this exchange and for these minutes that she has shared with us.
Yes,
We gonna book you, Miss Ann, for
I'm
another
always here, man. You
yes,
see, the thing is,
conversation.
my thing is you cannot be successful or call yourself successful if your sister is struggling.
yes.
So I'm
That's
always
right.
the one to put all the information out there. I'm always the one that you can always pick up the phone and call. I'm always giving free advice. I've always been available. You can ask anybody. I've always been available because you cannot be successful by yourself, as COVID has proven.
That's
Right.
right.
We are
What
all
what what
connected.
what I'm taking away from this is that you had to make a lot of shifts. You had to adjust. You had to tweak. You had to pivot, and you a lot of what you did you were able to mitigate some of the distress that so
Yes.
many small business owners are being faced with right now. And before we go, I just wanted to mention that you're surviving, which is good. And I've seen where Carl and Sandra, I'm sure you heard that there's so many larger businesses that have filed for bankruptcy. Recently, I heard that what's this one in America just recently filed for bankruptcy. Hertz Car Rental. So big companies are struggling. Big companies. So I say blessings to you, my sister, for being able to
Listen,
survive through this
do
and
not
withstand
discount,
all that's happening.
do not discount the power of prayer.
Oh no, for
Your
sure, for sure.
mental state, your mental state, and your spiritual state, especially during a time of change, because people don't really do change very well.
Yes,
You have to trust. You have to trust someone or something. You have to focus. You have to rely not on self, but be able to be still and be, listen to that still small voice. You
Well,
know?
that's more than invaluable advice, wouldn't you say, Carol? For other business people who are struggling at this time,
And this is
and
why I'm saying that we're gonna come back.
we're
We're
gonna
gonna
have
come
to,
back.
yes, we're gonna have to do a comeback with you, Sandro, and maybe we'll have others from other industries join as well in the
Right.
conversation, because this is really, it's
Because
really
every industry face different
struggles, yes,
scenarios,
different
different
struggles,
struggles.
yes,
Yes.
yes, I imagine so.
So look, let's just give thanks for the day and
Yes,
rejoice
Absolutely.
in the opportunity to share with each other. And we really, really appreciate and send you every prayer and blessing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I really like what you're doing. And, sharing is a major part of what is needed to get everybody up and running, because, we take it for granted that when we don't see people, they're okay.
yes, yes, and we can't do it
And
alone. We can't do it alone.
apart from not doing it alone, as someone who manages herself and manages a business and managing people, people take it for granted. Oh, Sandra is so strong,
Yes.
you know,
Yes, yes.
and they assume a lot. But luckily, I'm one that speaks my mind, and I tell you exactly what I'm going through and I share it. But some people suffer silently, and some people even go off.
Well, we'll see you again, Miss Sandra, because we
It's such a
are,
shame.
yeah, we're running out of time. So we'll
Yes.
see you again. Thank you. I'm Charlene, and we had a wonderful guest, Sandra Samuel, and my co-host Carol Narcisse. We'll talk again. Walk
Thank
good.
you. Thanks for having me. Have a
You're
great week.
welcome. Take care.